The desert night was quiet, too quiet. Coyotes howled in the distance and the dry wind whispered through the tall grass, and then a gunshot. The rancher, Eli Turner, stopped dead in his tracks. He had been riding home, the saddle creaking beneath him, when that sharp crack split the silence. Gunfire meant trouble in these parts, and trouble usually came riding fast. What Eli didn't know was that stopping to investigate would change his life forever, because in the dust, beneath the dying light of the moon, lay a stranger, a man, beaten, bloodied, and running from killers who wouldn't stop until one of them was dead. And by saving him, Eli Turner had just signed his own death warrant. The lone rancher Eli Turner wasn't a man of town politics. He kept to himself, working his small spread of cattle out near the foothills of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Folks knew him as reliable, quiet, the kind of man who did his work and asked for nothing more. But Eli had a past, a soldier in the war, a man who had seen death up close and carried it in his eyes. That was why he preferred the silence of the plains to the noise of people. Out here, you could forget. Out here, you could heal. At least that's what he thought. Until tonight. The stranger in the dust. When Eli rode toward the gunfire, he found a trail of boot prints in the dirt. The tracks led to a gulch, where the moonlight caught something on the ground. A man, half conscious, his shirt torn, blood soaking his shoulder. His hat lay beside him, riddled with bullet holes. "Help. Me," the stranger whispered, before collapsing again. Eli dismounted fast. He checked the man's pulse. It was faint, but there. Whoever this was, he didn't have long. And judging by the tracks behind him, whoever had shot him was still close. Eli cursed under his breath. He should have left. It wasn't his fight, not his problem. But Eli Turner wasn't the kind of man who could walk away from someone bleeding out in the dust. The chase, the sound of hooves thundered in the distance. Riders, at least 3 of them, maybe more. Their voices carried through the night. Rough, angry. "He's got to be here somewhere," one shouted. "Find him before he bleeds out. We can't let him talk." Eli didn't have time to think. He threw the stranger across his saddle and mounted up. His horse, Dusty, neighed in protest at the extra weight, but Eli dug his heels in. They rode hard into the brush, the shouts of the pursuers echoing closer. Eli guided his horse through rocky terrain, weaving between mesquite and dry creek beds, trying to lose them in the labyrinth of the land. Bullets whined past his head, the night lit with muzzle flashes, but Eli knew this country like the back of his hand. He ducked into a narrow canyon, the echoes of pursuit fading behind him. For now, they were safe. A deadly decision by dawn, Eli made it back to his ranch. He laid the stranger on his bed, cleaned the wound with whiskey and stitched it as best he could. The man groaned but didn't wake. Eli studied him. Young, maybe late 20s. Rough around the edges, but there was something about him. His clothes weren't those of a drifter. This man had been running from something bigger. When the stranger finally opened his eyes, he whispered hoarsely, "You shouldn't have saved me. Now they'll kill you too." Eli frowned. "Who are they?" The stranger's eyes darted around, full of fear. "The McGraw gang. They own this territory, and now they know you helped me." The McGraw gang, everyone in the county knew the name. The McGraw brothers ran cattle rustling, gambling, and half the town's lawmen were paid to look the other way. Their leader, Silas McGraw, was a man people spoke of in whispers. Cold, ruthless, and with a smile that made your blood run cold. If he wanted someone dead, they didn't last the week, and Eli Turner had just made himself their next target. As the sun rose over the desert, Eli stared out at the horizon. Dust clouds were rising far off, riders coming. The stranger lay weak behind him, barely clinging to life. Eli had a choice: hand him over, and maybe buy himself mercy, or stand against the most dangerous gang in the territory. He knew what a smart man would do, but Eli Turner had never been called a smart man, and so began the feud that would paint the desert red. The desert sun climbed slow, stretching gold over Eli Turner's ranch. Normally, mornings here were quiet. The call of meadowlarks, the shuffle of cattle in the corral, Dusty snorting for feed. But not today. Eli stood on his porch with his Winchester cradled in his hands, eyes fixed on the horizon. He hadn't slept a wink, not with the stranger bleeding in his bed and the dust of riders he'd seen before dawn. The McGraw gang was coming. He could feel it. The stranger wakes from inside, a hoarse voice called out, weak but steady. "Water, please." Eli stepped back inside. The stranger struggled to sit up, sweat plastering his hair to his forehead. His shoulder wound was angry and red, but the stitches had held. Eli poured water from a tin cup and handed it over. The man drank like a man dying of thirst. "You owe me answers," Eli said flatly. The stranger wiped his mouth, his eyes dark. "Name's Daniel Harper. At least it was before last night." Eli frowned. "And what's that supposed to mean?" Daniel's truth. Daniel leaned back, wincing at the pain in his shoulder. "The McGraw gang. They ain't just rustlers. They run every crooked deal from here to the border. Gambling, guns, stolen cattle, you name it. But Silas McGraw's real business is land." Eli crossed his arms. "Land?" Daniel nodded. "He wants to own every ranch, every homestead. Anyone who won't sell ends up missing, or buried out in the desert." Eli's jaw tightened. He'd heard rumors. Broken men stumbling into town with stories nobody believed. Or maybe just stories nobody wanted to repeat. "So where do you come into this?" Eli asked. Daniel's face hardened. "I worked for 'em. Rode with the McGraws for a year. I know their secrets, their hideouts, every man they've killed. I know too much. And when I said I was done, they put a bullet in my back." Eli let out a low whistle. "So you're telling me I just dragged a marked man into my home?" Daniel's gaze locked on his. "You didn't just drag me in. You dragged yourself into the middle of their war." A rancher's dilemma. Eli paced the room. Every word out of Daniel's mouth carried weight. If the McGraws really did control half the county, then sheltering their enemy was suicide. And yet, what choice did he have now? If Silas McGraw's men had tracked Daniel to this ranch, then Eli was already on their list. "You should have let me die out there," Daniel muttered. "Would have been easier for both of us." Eli slammed his palm against the wooden table. "That ain't how I was raised. A man bleeding in the dirt gets help, whether he's a saint or a sinner. But don't mistake me for a fool, Harper. If you've dragged hell to my doorstep, I'll fight it on my terms." Riders approaching. The conversation was cut short by the sound Eli dreaded. Hooves. Dust rose on the far ridge. Riders. 5 of them cutting fast across the plain toward the ranch. Daniel's face went pale. "That's them." Eli grabbed his rifle, checked the rounds. He looked back at Daniel. "Can you shoot?" Daniel gritted his teeth. "Not with this shoulder. You'll be on your own." "Figures," Eli muttered. He moved onto the porch, eyes sharp. The riders slowed as they neared, spreading out in a fan. Their leader, a tall man with a black hat and a grin like a rattlesnake, rode to the front. "First words, Turner." The man called, voice carrying over the open plain. "Mighty fine morning, ain't it?" Eli said nothing, rifle resting against his shoulder. The man tipped his hat. "Name's Clay McGraw. I reckon you know who my brother is. Silas's kin." Trouble had a name now. Clay's grin widened. "We're just here for what's ours. A certain fella you might have picked up last night. Bring him out and maybe we let this place stand." Eli spat into the dirt. "Don't know what you're talking about," Clay chuckled. "Funny thing, your tracks were all over that gulch. You think we're blind? Bring us Harper and you'll never hear from us again." The standoff, the silence stretched. Eli could feel Daniel's eyes on him from inside the cabin. He could also feel the weight of the decision pressing down like a mountain. Give up Daniel, and the McGraws might spare him. But a man like Clay McGraw didn't strike him as the merciful type. Eli raised his rifle just enough to make his point. "You boys are on Turner land. You've got until I count 3 to ride out, or you'll be riding home with fewer saddles filled." The riders shifted uneasily. But Clay just laughed. "You got grit, rancher. Shame it won't save you." He snapped his fingers. His men spread wider, hands hovering over their pistols. Gunfire at dawn, the first shot cracked the silence. Eli didn't know who fired it, only that suddenly the porch exploded with splinters and Dusty screamed from the corral. Eli's rifle roared back, dropping one rider clean from his saddle. Another wheeled away, firing wildly. Clay shouted orders. his men circling, trying to flank the ranch house. Eli ducked behind a post, firing methodically. Each shot was careful, precise. Years of soldiering came flooding back. The discipline, the calm in chaos. Inside, Daniel dragged himself to the window with a pistol in his good hand, firing weakly at the riders. His shots weren't accurate, but they forced the McGraw men to scatter. The ranch was a war zone. Smoke, dust, and gunfire filled the air. As Eli reloaded, a shadow fell across him. Clay McGraw himself had dismounted, moving fast, revolver drawn. Eli spun, but too late. Clay's gun was already pointed square at his chest. "Looks like your time's up." "Rancher," Clay sneered. The hammer clicked back, and that's when Daniel shouted from inside, his voice raw with desperation. "Eli, down!" Clay McGraw's revolver stared down Eli Turner's chest like a snake ready to strike. Time slowed, Eli's finger frozen on the trigger of his Winchester, heart thundering in his ears. Then Daniel's voice cut through the chaos. "Down!" Eli dropped hard, rolling to the boards of the porch. Clay's shot tore splinters from the wall, inches above Eli's head. In that same motion, Eli twisted his rifle up and fired from the ground. The bullet clipped Clay's hat, spinning it into the dirt. Clay staggered back, furious, cursing Eli's name. A desperate counterattack gunfire thundered again. Eli rolled behind a porch post, reloading with practiced speed. Daniel, pale and sweating, fired his pistol from the window with his good arm. His shots weren't killing, but they pinned the riders long enough for Eli to breathe. Clay barked orders. "Flank him! Burn the damn house if you have to!" One rider lit a torch and spurred toward the barn. Eli cursed, took aim, and squeezed. The torchbearer tumbled from his saddle, the flame dying in the dirt. "Not today," Eli muttered. Clay's vow Clay retreated a few paces, fury twisting his features. His men were dropping, and the stubborn rancher refused to break. "You think you can stand against the McGraws, Turner?" Clay shouted. "This ain't just about Harper. You're making yourself our enemy," Eli called back, voice hard as iron. "Then I reckon I'll add your name to my list of regrets when I'm dead. But until then, this ranch stands," Clay sneered. "You just signed your death warrant." Daniel's warning inside, Daniel coughed blood, gripping the window frame. He shouted weakly, "Eli, listen, Clay ain't the brains. He's the teeth. Silas McGraw is the one you should fear." Eli fired another round, ducked behind the porch rail. "I'll worry about Silas when he shows his face. Right now his brother's trying to kill us both." But Daniel's words carved a deeper fear. If Clay was this relentless, what kind of devil was Silas? A narrow escape? The firefight raged until the sun climbed high. Eli's rifle was hot, his shirt soaked with sweat, the porch littered with shells. 2 McGraw men lay dead in the dust. The others pulled back, gathering with Clay at a distance. Clay pointed a bloody finger toward Eli. "This ain't over. You hear me, rancher? We'll be back, and next time, we bring hell with us." With that, he wheeled his horse and galloped off, the remaining riders thundering after him. Eli stood on the porch, chest heaving, rifle still smoking. The silence afterward was deafening. Aftermath inside, Daniel slumped against the wall, pale as death. "They'll regroup," he said hoarsely. "You bought us a few hours, maybe a day. But Silas won't stop. He can't, not with me alive." Eli poured him more water, shaking his head. "You've dragged a storm onto my land, Harper. But I won't let this place burn. Not for you, not for anyone." Daniel's gaze was heavy with guilt. "You should have left me in the dirt." Eli tightened his jaw. "Maybe, but I didn't. And now we finish this." The plan by nightfall, Eli had the ranch locked down like a fortress. He patched fences, set traps along the approach, and stashed rifles in every corner. Daniel, weak but stubborn, insisted on helping, loading ammo with one good arm, sketching maps of McGraw hideouts he'd once known. "They've got a camp near Dry Creek," Daniel explained. "Silas runs it like a kingdom. If he hears Clay lost men today, he'll come himself." Eli studied the map. "Then I need to take the fight to them. Waiting here's a death wish." Daniel shook his head violently. "You don't understand. Silas doesn't just kill his enemies. He makes examples. If you ride out there, you'll be feeding yourself to wolves." Eli's eyes hardened. "If wolves are coming for me, I'd rather meet them with teeth bared." Midnight confession. The desert cooled under a pale moon. Crickets hummed in the grass, but neither Eli nor Daniel slept. Eli sat by the fire, polishing his rifle. Daniel finally spoke, his voice soft. "I wasn't always an outlaw. Had a family once. Wife, little boy. Silas promised me money, land, a fresh start. I was fool enough to believe him. By the time I saw what he really was, it was too late. My family. They're gone because of me." Eli glanced at him, surprised at the raw honesty. Daniel stared into the flames. "That's why I ran. That's why I can't let him win. He's taken too much already." For the first time, Eli saw not just an outlaw, but a broken man haunted by ghosts. The silent rider. Near midnight, Dusty snorted in alarm. Eli grabbed his rifle, moving to the window. A lone rider sat at the edge of the property. Not moving, not approaching, just watching. The moonlight caught his hat, wide-brimmed and black. A chill crawled up Eli's spine. Daniel's face drained of color. "That's him. Who?" Eli whispered. Daniel's voice was barely a breath. "Silas McGraw." The rider never moved. After a long moment, he turned his horse and disappeared into the night. Eli Turner barely slept. Every creak of the boards, every howl of the coyotes outside made his trigger finger twitch. He knew the silent rider Daniel had named, Silas McGraw, wasn't the kind of man who watched and rode away. No, Silas was measuring him, testing his defenses, already planning the next move. When dawn broke, Eli walked the fence line, rifle in hand, eyes sharp. His cattle shifted nervously in the corral, picking up on his unease. Dusty, his old Mustang, pawed the dirt like he too sensed war coming. Inside, Daniel sat slumped at the table, face drawn, shoulder wrapped in fresh bandages. He looked weaker by the hour, but his voice was steady. "You saw him, didn't you? Silas don't need to say a word. When he looks at you, it's like he's already digging your grave." Eli didn't answer. He didn't need to. Silas's reputation over breakfast, if you could call cold beans and bitter coffee breakfast. Daniel told stories. They say Silas once made a sheriff dig his own grave outside of Laramie. Took the man's badge, nailed it to a tree, and left him for the crows. Another time, a ranch family wouldn't sell their land. Silas burned the place down with them locked inside. He don't just kill, Eli, he erases. Eli chewed in silence. His jaw was tight, his stomach sour. Daniel leaned forward. "If he set his eyes on you, there's no bargaining, no mercy. You've got two choices, run or fight a battle you can't win." Eli's eyes flicked up, hard as stone. "Then I reckon I'll fight. A man don't run from his own land." Trouble rides to town by noon. Eli saddled Dusty and rode into town for supplies. He needed ammo, nails for barricades, anything to prepare for the storm coming. But when he reached the dusty main street, he knew Silas's shadow had already stretched here. The saloon was quieter than usual. Men sat hunched over their drinks, whispering. The blacksmith barely nodded. Even Sheriff Tully, usually a friendly face, avoided Eli's eyes. Finally, old Martha from the general store whispered the truth. "Word is, Silas sent riders into town last night. Told the sheriff plain, anyone helping you is as good as dead." Eli felt the weight of every stare on his back as he bought his supplies. He wasn't just a rancher anymore. He was a walking death sentence for anyone near him. An unlikely ally on his way out of town. A voice called from the shadows of the stable. "Turner." A young man stepped forward, hat low, eyes sharp. Eli recognized him. Jesse Holloway, a ranch hand who'd lost his father in a McGraw raid 2 years back. "I heard what you did," Jesse said. "Heard you stood up to Clay and lived. Folks are scared, but some of us, we've been waiting for a man to bloody their nose." Eli studied him. The boy couldn't have been more than 20, but his hands gripped his revolver like he'd been born with it. "You're saying you want to fight?" Eli asked. "I'm saying I want revenge." Eli nodded once. "Then saddle up. But don't do this for me, boy. Do it for yourself, and know it might get you killed." Jesse's eyes never wavered. "I've been waiting to die with a gun in my hand since the day they took my father." Fire in the night. That night, Eli returned to the ranch with Jesse in tow. Daniel was surprised at the new face, but too exhausted to argue. Together, The three of them reinforced the place, barricading windows, digging shallow trenches, laying lanterns where shadows might betray approaching riders. But Silas struck sooner than expected, near midnight. The horizon lit up with orange flames. Eli's barn was on fire. He and Jesse rushed out, bullets whizzing past their heads as McGraw riders whooped and hollered in the dark. Eli dropped one with a clean shot, Jesse another. But the barn was already lost. Cattle bawled in panic as fire consumed the timbers. Daniel stumbled outside, pistol in hand, teeth clenched against the pane. "They're testing us." "Just a warning." The barn collapsed in sparks and smoke, the night filled with the stench of burning wood and screaming livestock. Eli swore under his breath. Silas wasn't just killing his animals. He was sending a message. Silas speaks when the smoke thinned. A figure appeared on horseback at the edge of the firelight. Silas McGraw himself. He was taller than Eli expected. Broad-shouldered, his face half-shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. His voice rolled out calm, steady, but colder than the desert at night. "Turner, I'm impressed. Most men hand Harper over the second we come knocking. But you think you can fight me?" Eli raised his rifle but didn't fire. "I don't think—" "I know," Silas chuckled. Brave words from a man watching his life burn. "You're protecting a traitor, and for that you'll suffer the same fate. By dawn your ranch will be ash and your bones will be picked clean by the buzzards." He tugged the reins, turning his horse. His men melted back into the darkness. The fire hissed and crackled behind them. Daniel's desperation. When they were gone, Daniel collapsed against the porch rail, his face pale in the firelight. "You don't understand, Eli. He won't stop. Not until we're all dead. He'll burn this land, burn the town, burn everything just to prove a point." Eli gripped his rifle tighter. "Then we make our stand here. Not for you. Not even for me. For every rancher he's buried. For every family he's erased." Jesse nodded, jaw clenched. "Then let's make it a fight he won't forget." As the flames of the barn smoldered and the night fell quiet, Eli knew what was coming. Silas wasn't bluffing. By dawn, the McGraws would return in force. He looked at Daniel, broken but unyielding. He looked at Jesse, young but hungry for justice. 3 men against an army. Eli whispered to himself, voice low but steady, "Let them come." The night dragged on with the smell of charred wood heavy in the air. Eli, Jesse, and Daniel worked by lantern light, loading rifles, setting what traps they could and bracing for the inevitable. The barn was gone. Half the cattle too, but the house still stood, and Eli swore it would not fall without a fight. As dawn bled pale light across the desert horizon, the silence itself felt wrong. Even the coyotes had gone quiet. Jesse paced the porch, restless, his revolver never leaving his hand. Daniel sat inside, revolver across his lap, face ashen but eyes sharp. "He's coming. I can feel it." Eli chambered around, his jaw set. "Then let him come." Riders on the horizon. The first sign came as a low rumble, hoofbeats, dozens of them. Eli stepped onto the porch, squinting into the rising sun. Shapes materialized on the ridgeline, riders black against the morning light. At their center rode Silas McGraw, cloak flapping behind him like the wings of some carrion bird. They weren't 5 men this time. They were 20, maybe more. Armed, ready, confident. Jesse swallowed hard. "We're outnumbered." Eli didn't take his eyes off the horizon. "Numbers don't win fights. Nerve does. You keep your head steady, you'll live. You lose it, you're already dead." First shots, the McGraw riders came down in a line, hooting and hollering, guns firing into the air. Eli raised his Winchester. "Wait," he murmured. He let them close the distance, every heartbeat pounding like a drum. Then, calm as a preacher, he whispered, "Now!" The crack of his rifle echoed across the desert. The lead rider toppled from his horse, his body tumbling in the dust. Jesse opened up next, his revolver barking rapid fire, and Daniel, pale but grim, squeezed off shots from the window. The riders scattered, surprised at the ferocity. Dust exploded as horses veered, bullets whining against the ranch house. "The charge, smoke 'em out," Silas roared, his voice carrying like thunder. Half his men dismounted, charging on foot with rifles raised. The others circled wide, trying to flank. Eli fired, dropped another man, reloaded, and kept firing, methodical as a machine. Jesse shouted in triumph as he winged a rider, but his grin faded when bullets shattered the porch rail inches from his chest. Daniel's voice called from inside. "Left side! They're circling left!" Eli pivoted, laying down fire to drive them back. The porch shook as bullets slammed into the beams. Jesse's moment. Suddenly, Jesse screamed. His hat flew off as a bullet grazed his scalp. Blood streaked his forehead, but his hand was steady as he snapped his revolver up and fired back, dropping the man who'd shot him. "I'm fine," he barked, teeth clenched though his knees shook. Eli gave him a sharp nod. "That's the fight, boy." "Hold it." The Inferno A. McGraw rider hurled a torch against the side of the house. Flames licked up the boards, smoke pouring skyward. "Fire!" Jesse shouted. Eli grabbed a bucket, but Daniel called out, coughing, "Don't waste it. They'll burn us out no matter what. Focus on them." The fire spread fast, the dry wood catching like tinder. Eli cursed under his breath. They were trapped in their own stronghold. Silas sat calmly on his horse in the distance, watching it all unfold like a man at the theater. Eli's gambit. Eli knew they couldn't sit still. He slammed a fresh cartridge into his rifle and barked orders. "Daniel, cover the windows. Jesse, with me. We push out before we choke in here." Jesse blinked. "Push out? Into that? You want to live, son? Then move." With a roar, Eli kicked open the door. He and Jesse stormed into the yard, guns blazing. The McGraw men, startled, scattered again as two of their number fell to Eli's relentless aim. Smoke rolled behind them, fire chewing through the house. Daniel coughed and wheezed, but his pistol cracked out steady shots through the haze. The clash, the fight turned brutal. No more cover, no more safe distance, just chaos. Horses screamed, men shouted. Dust and smoke mingled with blood. Jesse, wild-eyed but fierce, shot a man off his saddle and grabbed his fallen rifle, firing like a veteran. Eli, calm and relentless, fought like he had in the war, never wasting a bullet, every shot a life taken. But still they were being pushed back. Silas's men were too many, their circle tightening. Eli caught sight of Silas again, watching from horseback, calm as death. "You too scared to dirty your hands, McGraw?" Eli shouted across the din. Silas tipped his hat with a thin smile. "Patience. You'll die by my hand soon enough." Daniel's last stand-a cry rang out behind them. Daniel had stumbled from the burning house, coughing blood, gun in hand. He fired wildly, hitting one rider in the chest before collapsing to his knees. "Go," he rasped. "Don't let them take you." Bullets ripped the dirt around him, but Daniel kept firing until his revolver clicked empty. Eli's chest clenched. He couldn't let the man fall there. He sprinted through the gunfire, grabbed Daniel under the arm, and dragged him toward cover. Jesse laid down frantic fire to buy them seconds. Daniel gasped, his eyes glassy. "I told you, Eli, Silas don't stop." "He never stops." Eli gritted his teeth. "Neither do I." The flames consumed the ranch house, the yard a battlefield littered with bodies. Eli, Jesse, and Daniel crouched behind the last remaining stone wall, smoke choking the air. Across the chaos, Silas raised his hand, signaling his men. The gunfire ceased. A terrible silence fell. Then Silas's voice carried, calm and cold. "Enough games. Turner, bring me Harper and maybe I'll leave you breathing. Refuse, and I'll bury you where you stand." Eli's rifle trembled in his hands, not from fear but from rage. He knew the choice he made in the next breath would decide all their fates. The air was thick with smoke and silence. The crackling of the burning ranch house was the only sound, punctuated by the faint moan of the wounded scattered across the dirt. Eli crouched low behind the last stone wall with Jesse and Daniel. Silas's men stood waiting in the distance, their rifles leveled but silent, all eyes on their leader. Silas sat astride his horse like a king on a throne, black hat tilted low, his voice steady and cruel. "Bring me Harper, Turner. Do that and you might crawl away from this with your skin still on. Refuse and I'll grind your name into the dust." Daniel coughed hard, blood spraying his lips. His voice came raw, desperate. "Eli, he's right. You can't win this, give me up. I'm not worth your life." Or his. He nodded toward Jesse, who was reloading with trembling hands. Eli's jaw locked tight. A man don't sell another man to the devil just to buy himself a little time. Jesse's eyes darted between them. Sweat streaked his bloody temple, his young face pale under the soot. Eli, maybe he's right. We're 3 men, 2 really, with Daniel half dead. Silas has 20 left, maybe more. If we give him Daniel, maybe we live to fight another day. Eli fixed him with a look that cut like steel. You think men like Silas honor their word? Boy, he'll take Harper, and then he'll kill us anyway just so folks know no one defies him. Jesse swallowed hard, his fingers clenching the revolver tighter. He didn't answer. The answer Eli rose slowly from behind the stone wall, rifle in hand. The smoke and fire behind him painted him in a grim silhouette. He called out across the battlefield. Silas! You want Harper? You'll have to come through me to take him. A murmur ran through the McGraw riders. Silas's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. So be it. He raised his hand. The silence shattered into thunder. The second wave gunfire erupted again, a storm of bullets tearing into the stone wall. Chips of rock sprayed as Eli and Jesse ducked low, returning fire. Daniel, though weak, dragged himself up enough to squeeze off a shot, his face pale as death. A McGraw rider went down, then another. But their numbers pressed in closer, relentless. Jesse's revolver clicked empty. Out, he shouted, fumbling for more rounds. Eli shoved a spare cylinder into his hands. Keep firing, boy. The world shrank to smoke, dust, and the crack of rifles. Daniel's burden at one point. Daniel grabbed Eli's sleeve, pulling him close. His voice was faint, ragged. Eli, I should have told you sooner. The McGraws, they want me 'cause I stole something. Not gold, not land papers. Something worse, Eli snarled as he fired another round. Spit it out. Daniel coughed, eyes dim. Ledger, names, places. Proof of every deal Silas ever made. Every man he bought, every bribe he paid. Enough to hang him 100 times over. Eli's blood ran cold. No wonder Silas wanted him, you carrying it. Daniel shook his head weakly. Hid it, back in town. Safe with someone I trust. That's why he'll never stop. He can't risk me talking. Jesse's reckoning a bullet slammed into the wall near Jesse's head, spraying stone across his cheek. He flinched but didn't falter. His revolver roared back, dropping another rider. Through the smoke, Jesse shouted, Then it ain't just about saving a man. It's about taking down the whole damn McGraw gang. Eli barked a grim laugh. Now you're thinking like a fighter. Silas moves as his men fell one by one. Silas finally dismounted. He walked forward slowly, calm as a preacher at Sunday sermon, revolver loose in his hand. His men gave him space, their gunfire ceasing as he advanced. Turner, he bellowed. Enough hiding behind rocks. Face me like a man. Let's end this. Eli's stomach tightened. This was it, he looked at Jesse. Keep Daniel alive. No matter what, Jesse's eyes widened. Eli? But Eli was already standing, rifle in hand, stepping out from behind the wall into the open dirt. The duel, the world seemed to still. Smoke drifted, the sun blazed overhead, and the 2 men stood facing each other across 20 paces of scorched earth. Silas's eyes gleamed like a rattlesnake sizing up its prey. Eli's grip on his rifle was steady, his heartbeat slow, controlled. You could have lived, Silas said softly. All you had to do was hand him over. Eli's voice was low, hard. A man's worth more than his fear. Something you'll never understand. Silas's smile faded. Then die with your principles. His hand twitched toward his revolver. Eli's rifle barked first. The chaos, the bullet caught Silas's hat, spinning it from his head. For the first time, his calm cracked. He staggered back, his revolver firing wild. His men shouted, rushing forward, breaking the duel into chaos. Eli dropped another rider, then another, but there were too many. Gunfire closed in on him from all sides. From behind the wall, Jesse shouted, his revolver flashing. Daniel tried to rise again, only to collapse, coughing blood. Eli knew they couldn't hold much longer. Not here, not with the numbers against them. As Silas steadied himself, blood streaking his temple from a grazing shot, his voice rang out, furious, but still controlled. Turner, you think you can stop me? I'll burn your name from the earth. I'll salt your land so nothing grows. I'll hang that boy and gut Harper in front of you. Eli's rifle clicked empty. He was down to his revolver, smoke burning his lungs. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. Still, he squared his shoulders, eyes locked on Silas. "Then you'd better finish the job yourself. 'Cause I ain't kneeling." The battle wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The world was fire and thunder. Gunshots cracked, smoke curled low, and the dirt churned with the pounding of hooves. Eli, Jesse, and Daniel clung to the last stones of the ranch yard, their cover dwindling by the second. Silas McGraw, blood streaking down his temple, had pulled back to rally his men. His voice carried like a whip crack. "And this. I want Turner dead, the boy strung up and Harper dragged to me breathing or not." Eli reloaded his revolver with calm hands, though every muscle screamed with exhaustion. Jesse, panting hard, fired wildly, his aim ragged now from fear and fatigue. Daniel sagged against the wall, coughing up blood. You can't hold him off much longer." "Not like this." Eli's jaw clenched. "I'll hold him till I can't. That's what a Turner does." Jesse cracks a bullet-chipped stone inches from Jesse's head. He froze, then ducked low, hands shaking. "Eli, we can't win this. There's too many. We stay here, we die here." His eyes flicked toward Daniel, guilt and panic mixing. Maybe Silas is right. Maybe giving him up. Eli's hand snapped out, gripping Jesse's collar, yanking him close until their eyes locked. His voice was low, fierce. "You listen to me, boy. A man don't throw another to the wolves just to save his own hide. You do that once, you'll carry the shame till you're in the ground. You want to be a McGraw, or you want to be a Turner." Jesse's lip trembled, but then something hardened in his eyes. He swallowed and gave a tight nod. "Turner." Eli shoved him back into cover. "Then fight like one." Silas is trapped. The McGraw gang shifted tactics. Half their men hung back, laying down steady fire. The other half swung wide on horseback, circling around the burning ruins to cut off any escape. Eli saw it instantly. "They're boxing us in." Daniel wheezed a bitter laugh. "That's what Silas does. He closes every door until you got no choice left." Eli's mind worked fast. There had to be one last way out, but every option looked like suicide. Daniel's hand clamped Eli's wrist. His voice came ragged but fierce. "You don't understand, Eli. Silas isn't just another outlaw. He's rot that spreads. That ledger I told you about? It's proof of every man he's bought. Sheriffs, judges, even preachers. If he gets me, he burns it, and he owns this whole territory forever. But if you get me out alive, if you get me to that ledger, we can bury him for good." Eli stared at him, weighing the words. His whole life had been about surviving, about keeping his ranch and his name safe. But this was bigger than him, bigger than any one man. "Where's the ledger?" Eli demanded. Daniel coughed, blood flecking his lips. "Lockbox. Dry Creek, old blacksmith shop. North side of town." Jesse's grit alley looked to Jesse. The boy's face was pale, but his jaw was set. His revolver shook in his hand, but he kept firing, driving back riders as they pressed in closer. "You trust me?" Eli asked him. Jesse's breath hitched. "More than anyone. Then we make a run for the horses. North fence. It's our only chance." The breakout Eli waited for a lull, his heart pounding. Then he barked, "Now!" The three of them broke from cover, sprinting through smoke and chaos. Bullets whipped past, dirt spitting at their heels. Jesse fired over his shoulder, yelling, "Go, go, go!" They reached the fence where two half-wild horses still pawed nervously, not yet scattered by gunfire. Eli shoved Daniel onto one, slapping the reins into his hands. "You ride, damn you. Ride and don't stop." Daniel shook his head weakly. "I can't," Eli snarled, shoving him harder. "You'll ride or you'll die here." The prices. Daniel scrambled onto the horse. Jesse turned to mount the other. But a shot rang out. Jesse staggered, crying out as blood blossomed on his shoulder. "Jesse!" Eli roared, catching him before he hit the dirt. The boy gritted his teeth, trying to rise. "I'm fine. Go." Another volley of gunfire ripped the fence apart. One of the horses bolted, Daniel barely hanging on. The second horse reared, panicked, and tore free before Eli could throw Jesse onto it. Now it was just the two of them on foot. Smoke and riders closing in. Silas appears through the haze. Silas emerged, revolver in hand, eyes blazing with hate. He pointed at Eli, his voice carrying like a curse. "Kill the boy. Leave Turner for me." Jesse's breath hitched. He clung to Eli's arm, his eyes wide with fear. Eli raised his revolver, teeth bared. "You'll have to take him from my corpse." Silas smiled cold. "That's the idea." The final push gunfire erupted again. Eli dragged Jesse behind the last remnants of the fence, firing back with deadly precision. Every shot bought them a second more. But he could feel it, the tide was done. They were running on fumes. Jesse clutched his shoulder, blood pouring. "Eli, don't let him win. Don't let him own this land." Eli squeezed the boy's hand. "Not while I'm breathing." Then it happened. A bullet slammed into Eli's side, knocking him to his knees. His vision blurred, the world tilting. Jesse screamed, grabbing at him, trying to drag him upright. "No, Eli, stay with me." Through the haze, Eli saw Silas striding closer, revolver raised, his shadow long in the firelight. "You're done, Turner," Silas sneered. "And once you're gone, every man, woman, and child in this valley will know the McGraws are law." Eli spat blood, forcing himself upright, revolver trembling in his hand. He knew this was it. One last stand, the barrel of Silas's gun leveled at his chest, and then bang! A shot rang out, but from somewhere else. Silas staggered, shock flashing across his face. All eyes turned toward the ridge. A lone rider appeared in the smoke, rifle still smoking in his hands. The tide had just changed. The battlefield froze as the echo of that unexpected shot rolled across the valley. Silas staggered, clutching his arm, blood soaking the sleeve of his black coat. His eyes blazed with fury, snapping toward the ridge. There, astride a dust-colored horse, sat a lone rider, wide-brimmed hat low, rifle cradled steady, smoke curling from its barrel. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then Jesse, pale and bleeding beside Eli, whispered, Who is that?" Eli squinted through the smoke, lips tightening. "Reckon it don't matter yet. What matters is they're on our side." The charge, the rider spurred his horse, thundering down the ridge with a war cry. Gunfire erupted as he closed the distance, his rifle spitting fire. 2 McGraw men toppled from their saddles before they even knew who they were facing. Silas roared, "Take him down! Now!" But the rider was moving fast, weaving through smoke and flame. Eli seized the moment, dragging Jesse to cover and firing his revolver at the panicked gang. Daniel's horse had vanished into the dark, carrying him toward Dry Creek. But if Silas lived, Daniel would never make it. This had to end now, blood and iron. The yard became chaos. Horses reared, men screamed, bullets hissed. The mysterious rider dismounted in the fray, drawing a 6-shooter with his free hand and fighting like a man possessed. Eli, despite the bullet lodged in his side, pushed forward. Every breath was pain, but every squeeze of the trigger drove the McGraws back another step. Beside him, Jesse fought through the haze of blood loss, reloading with shaking hands. He no longer looked like a boy. He looked like a man choosing to stand his ground. Silas and Eli through the chaos. Silas and Eli locked eyes again. Silas raised his revolver, his voice cold as the grave. "Turner, this ends with you in the dirt." Eli staggered upright, his revolver heavy in his hand. "Maybe, but I'll make sure you're there first." They walked toward each other across the yard, 2 men dragged together by fate, the firelight painting them like ghosts. The duel the world narrowed to 2 figures. The gang fell silent. Even the mysterious rider held his fire, as if the desert itself demanded this moment. Silas sneered. "You could have handed him over. Could have lived out your days on that worthless patch of land. But no, you had to play the hero." Eli's voice was steady, ironclad. "I ain't a hero. I'm just a man who won't kneel." Both guns came up, the night cracked open. 2 shots. 1 heartbeat apart. The fall Silas staggered first. His revolver slipped from his fingers as he clutched his chest, eyes wide with disbelief. He fell to his knees, choking on his own blood. Eli swayed, his own revolver still smoking. For a terrible moment, Jesse thought Eli had been hit again. But the rancher stayed on his feet, chest heaving, fire in his eyes. Silas collapsed face first into the dirt. The dust settled over him like a shroud. The McGraw gang froze. Their leader was dead. The retreat, The mysterious rider strode forward, rifle aimed at the gang. His voice rang out, deep and commanding. "Anyone else want to test their luck?" The McGraw men glanced at one another, their bravado crumbling. One by one they holstered their guns, spurred their horses, and scattered into the night. Silence fell at last. Only the crackle of fire and the ragged breathing of the survivors remained. The rider revealed. Jesse collapsed against the broken fence, clutching his bleeding shoulder. Eli staggered, blood dripping from his side. But his eyes never left the lone rider. The man pulled off his hat, revealing a weathered face framed by graying hair and hard, tired eyes. "Name's Marshall Cole," he said quietly. "Been tracking the McGraws for months. Looks like I picked the right night to ride in." Eli gave a faint, wry smile. "Reckon you got a knack for timing." Cole glanced at Silas's body. "That devil's been poisoning this land too long. Folks'll sleep easier knowing he's gone." Jesse's survival. Eli turned quickly back to Jesse, who was pale but conscious. He tore a strip of cloth from his own shirt, pressing it to the boy's wound. "Stay with me, Jesse. You did good. Real good." Jesse's eyes fluttered, but he managed a weak grin. "Guess I'm a Turner now, huh?" Eli's throat tightened. "Damn right you are." The road ahead. Daniel Harper's words echoed in Eli's mind. The ledger. Dry Creek, proof to bury the McGraw name forever. He looked at Cole. "Harper's headed to town with proof that could finish what Silas started. If he makes it, we could burn the rest of the McGraw rot out of this land." Cole nodded. "Then we ride at dawn. You've done your part, Turner. Time to see this through." Eli's reflection. As the night settled, Eli sat with Jesse at his side, the firelight flickering over their weary faces. His ranch was gone. His blood soaked into the dirt, but he felt no regret. For the first time in years, he wasn't just a man hiding from the world. He was part of something bigger. He'd stood against the devil himself, and lived. Epilogue. Closing scene. Days later, word spread across the territory. Silas McGraw was dead. His gang scattered, his empire crumbling. The ledger Daniel carried exposed every foul deal, every bought official. One by one, the McGraw's power turned to dust. Eli Turner's name became something whispered with respect in saloons and homesteads alike. The rancher who stood tall when no one else dared. Jesse healed slow, but strong, riding beside Eli as a son would a father. Daniel disappeared once the